Alright, what's up, y'all? It's your man Chess White, aka Jargon 2, and in this video, we're going to talk about offensive and defensive Rookie of the Year picks. So, looking back at the draft from last year, an obvious pick for OROY would be Cam Ward. QBs are going to put up lots of stats, but on the flip side of that, he's not going to such a great team. He might put up a lot of turnovers as well, which would hurt his OROY chances. Now, a lot of people are going to look right at Ashton Jeanty. Preseason, pre-draft process, one of the favorites to be OROY. And going into also not such a good team. Not such a good O-line in front of him, but he's got that Marshawn Lynch about him, and maybe he doesn't really need blockers. So if you picked Ashton Jeanty right now to be OROY, I would say that's a pretty solid pick. Right after that, Omari and Hampton going to the Chargers. Now, we know that the Chargers are going to run the football with Jim Harbaugh, and they did lose their left tackle for the season, but I have to like Omari and Hampton a little bit more than Jeanty because he's going to go play with Herbert. They've got some good weapons there, and they have an offensive line and a culture of running the football. You got the Carolina Panthers right there picking up Tet McMillan, and they kind of had to in some respects, trying to give Bryce somebody who can win jump balls on the outside. Now, maybe they should have spent that pick on O-line, but they got the first wide receiver off the board right there. It's not very likely that he would be OROY. The top two tight ends that went in the first round, you got Colston Loveland, who went to Chicago, and then you got the Colts in the middle of the first round, taking Tyler Warren out of Penn State, who was really a dog when you watch his tape. Guy was just really hard to tackle, lined up all over the place, took the snaps for the QB sneak, and if he was going into a better situation with a better QB, I would say, man, this is a dark horse pick for an OROY. We've never really seen a tight end win OROY, but Brock Bowers probably should have won it last year if he didn't. It's always because it's going to be some QB who's racking up more stats. But then, for other wide receivers in the first round, we've got Matthew Golden going to the Packers. I don't really see it with him as an OROY pick. Very small. You've got Emeka Egbuka going to the Bucks. That could be a nice pick right there. Mike Evans is going to get his, and so with, their wide receiver 2 being out for a little bit to start the season, you would expect Egbuka to step in and get a lot of targets, but I'm not really entirely sold on that either. And then you've also got, let's see, for the second quarterback taken, you got Jackson Dart. He doesn't look like he's going to go and start for the Giants, so I wouldn't really be picking him. Based on the first round, I think it would be safe to say that my first pick is going to be Omari and Hampton. After that, Ashton Jeanty and Cam Ward being third. Kind of always a safe bet if you had to put money on it. Now, look, I also have a message for all you NFL fans out there who might be watching this. Do not bet on NFL football. Do not bet on Offensive Rookie of the Year. Do not bet on Defensive Player of the Year. Just don't gamble, especially if you're young. Now, if you're old and you're rich, that's a different story. If you want to waste your money and lose money on stupid bets, that's up to you. It is America. It is legal now. But to all the young people out there listening, I really want to tell y'all, do not bet on this kind of stuff. When I'm looking at Offensive Rookie of the Year, I'm looking as much of the situation that the player is going to combined with the talent that they have. There's always going to be some sleepers in this kind of thing. So when we look at who went in the second round, you've got Texans with Jaden Higgins. Now, is Jaden Higgins going to be an OROY candidate? Most likely not. Nico's going to take a bunch of touches. And he's not even necessarily the second option in the Texans offense because you've got Kirk ahead of him. But then you've got some really interesting possible players early in the second. Travion Henderson, excellent career at Ohio State, and then goes over to New England. Now, Ramondre Stevenson, you would expect him to take a lot of the carries, but with Drake May being a young QB and Henderson being a better receiver out of the backfield, he's another candidate. We saw him take his first touch back to the house for a touchdown on a kick return. Luther Burden going to Chicago. I mentioned Colston Loveland a minute ago. Luther Burden also looks like he's going to be a dog for Chicago. And I don't expect him to get that kind of volume because Chicago has a deeper wide receiver core than we've seen in a long time. Now that they've got DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Colston Loveland, you add Luther Burden into that mix, and they're hoping that Caleb is going to put together a better year 2 than he had in year 1. I'm not really going to comment further on the Bears. I don't really see either one of the Bears players being front runners. Now you look a little bit further into the second round, and you've got Jack Besh going to the Raiders. He's a guy who could get a lot of targets, but is he going to get more than Brock Bowers? Probably not. And then finishing up here, you've also got, wide receiver who went to the Chargers, Trey Harris. Now, the Chargers had a lot of turnover at wide receiver in the last couple years. You would expect McConkey to take a lot of those touches, but I don't really see McConkey as a wide receiver one in the NFL, and I think that they got Trey Harris because he's got that height, weight, speed to be a number one player. So overall, I'm still sticking with Omarion Hampton, his teammate for LA. Used to be San Diego, of course, but LA Chargers. And I like Omarion Hampton in general. Didn't have a ton of carries at the college level, but I really like what he brings to the table. A couple of clips in him in the preseason that look really promising. Now, going back to the preseason comments, I'm going to always stand by this. Y'all cannot read too much into the preseason. Some of these rookies, they might look extremely good in the preseason, and then when the real season starts, they might get their asses whooped. Now, as far as the QB class goes, I would say last year was a very weak QB class. Yeah, you had the Saints picking up Tyler Shuck in the second round, but he wasn't able to beat out Spencer Rattler, who was a 5th or 6th round pick in the previous draft. So I think that, him going to the Saints, I don't really see him being much of an OROY candidate. But I do think Henderson in the second round might be one of the best of all of them. Now, Judkins, obviously, with his arrest, is off the table with that conversation. And then you have a couple of other prospects here, wide receivers. And now a real sleeper is going to be round 2 Denver Broncos taking RJ Harvey, a Central Florida running back. And y'all know Sean Payton is going to find ways to get that running back the ball on screen passes. He's going to get him the football in creative ways. And, Bo Nix going into year 2 is going to need somebody to rely on. There's been a lot of shuffle at that running back spot for the Broncos. And so RJ Harvey, really good sleeper pick right there. Now let's talk a little bit about Defensive Rookie of the Year. So in the first round, you had Travis Hunter technically being a corner, but I'm not really buying him as a D-Roy candidate, more as an O-Roy candidate. Now, Abdul Carter, widely considered to be the best defensive prospect in last year's class. Going to the Giants defensive line where there's already Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns, who they had traded for from Carolina. I don't really think I would pick Abdul Carter. If I'm just going to give you my pick straight up, it is Jalen Walker if he's healthy, because the off-ball linebackers, they have this ability to just be involved in every play, blitzing, covering, tackling. I don't know if Jalen Walker is healthy. I read that he was dealing with a hamstring injury in camp, so I'm not entirely sure that he's going to be the guy that, Atlanta was looking for. I also read that they weren't going to play him at Mike and that they were going to start him at D-end. Not really sure about that decision, but it is what it is. And then you look at the Dolphins picking up Kenneth Grant. This is a really interesting pick to me. They've got Zach Seiler on the defensive line. Not a whole lot of talent on their defense, but Kenneth Grant was a player with a lot of upside. And really an insanely strong defensive tackle class when you look back at it, because the Cardinals went and picked up a D-tackle. He's hurt, so he's kind of out of it. And then the Bengals had this long story with Shamar Stewart, didn't want to sign his deal. Eventually, they did bring him in. I think that he's got a lot of potential, but you do have Trey Hendrickson in front of him, and I'm not entirely sure that he's going to be an every down starter. That's one of the things that you would want to look for, and position value and every down starter. So I don't really think I would lean towards picking a corner right off the bat. An interesting consideration would be Malachi Starks. The Ravens have this ability to just sit where they're at in the draft and let incredibly good players fall right to them. They did the same thing again with Malachi Starks. Georgia Bulldog, team captain, great tackler, high football IQ. It's like he fits right into their team and was like a Raven before he even got drafted. And you look at James Pierce Jr., the Falcons gave up a lot to go back into the first round and go get this kid out of Tennessee to be a defensive end. Now, Generally speaking, defensive end is probably the best pick, maybe even more so than off-ball linebacker, because all he has to do is go out there and get 9 or 10 sacks as a rookie, and he can win Defensive Rookie of the Year. We saw Will Anderson do it for the Texans recently, and as a defensive end, they're involved on a lot of plays, shutting down the run and funneling things back to the middle. Even if they don't get sacks, just generating pressures and getting the QB off the spot is very valuable for a lot of different defenses. And James Pierce Jr., kind of a taller and leaner prospect, but incredible speed and overall athleticism, very tall. Similar build to Will Anderson, really. And he could be a good person to look at as well for Defensive Rookie of the Year. Now, the Broncos picked up Jahdae Barron out of UT, a player that I got to watch a lot because I do get to watch a lot of UT games. And very talented player. Plays corner, plays nickel. You could play him at safety. He's versatile. I wouldn't pick him to be a D-Roy candidate. I would say probably somebody like Shamar Stewart or Michael Williams even, who went to the 49ers, would be a better pick. But you never really know what you're going to get out of a corner DB throughout the course of the season. Sometimes it seems like these teams, the better teams, are drafting DBs for depth because they know that it's a long season, and some good teams have 4 and 5 great wide receivers, and you got to put guys out there who can cover. And even though they've got Pat Surtain, picking up Barron is just a good pick for overall value of the first round, because a lot of people had him as a top 15 prospect, so taking him right there at 15. And he's kind of a ready prospect, not so much of a long-term developmental project. You just plug this kid in and he can play DB for you. So one more player that I have to mention is the Eagles' Jihad Campbell. First round pick, linebacker out of Alabama, going in there to play right next to Zach Bond. This guy has to be in consideration for D-Roy. Like I was saying about Jalen Walker, the off-ball linebacker has been a good pick in the past to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. And we're going to be kicking off the season tomorrow, Eagles and Cowboys. In the chat, put who do you think is going to win OROY? Who do you think is going to win D-Roy? And what do you guys think that Cam Ward is going to do as a rookie, first overall pick? And also, what do you think Travis Hunter is going to do? Now, Travis Hunter, in some kind of alternate universe, could win OROY and D-Roy. And that would be the first time that that has ever happened. I don't think that that would happen. As a Texans fan, I hope that that does not happen. But really looking forward to the season getting kicked off. Looking forward to seeing how do these rookies adapt to taking the step up to the pro level. Always enjoy watching the draft and talking about these guys as they make that transition. So put who you think is going to win in the chat, and I'm going to see y'all in the next one. Peace out.